Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Things You Don't Know. I'm Chandler Foster, your friendly neighborhood procrastinate. Ah, shoot. Your friendly neighborhood co-host. Here with me today is Dr. William Weaver, psychologist and expert on why our brains do the wacky things that they do. How's it going, Dr. Weaver?
Well, hi, Chandler. Hi, everyone. I'm doing well, excited to dive in today's topic. And Chandler, don't worry. Procrastination is something we all struggle with, even psychologists, trust me.
Whew, what a relief. Yes, today we're tackling procrastination, specifically why we procrastinate, especially students, and how to overcome it. If you're listening to us instead of writing that paper that's due tomorrow, this one is just for you.
Oh, I feel called out already, but same here. I may or may not have procrastinated prepping for this episode.
So, you procrastinated on a procrastination podcast? Wow, that's some next level meta. Did you at least do it strategically to gather firsthand experience?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go with that. But But in all seriousness, procrastination is super common. Researchers define procrastination as the voluntary delay of an intended task, despite expecting to be worse off for the delay. Now, in other words, we know we should take action now and recognize that it might cause stress or trouble if we don't, but we still put it off. Sounds familiar?
Sound familiar? That's the story of my life, Dr. Weaver. My motto used to be, why do today what you can put off the night before the deadline?
Well, you know what? You're not alone. Studies show that 80 to 95% of college students procrastinate on their coursework. That's a staggering statistic. And about 1 in 5 adults are chronic procrastinators who do this as a lifestyle. So, if you're listening and freaking out that you procrastinate, hey, look, you're in good company. Practically everyone does it at least sometimes.
So, you're saying that 80 to 95% of students procrastinate and the other 5 to 20%, well, are they real or are they robots? Because I don't think I've met one yet.
They may be robots or just really very disciplined humans. But yes, procrastination is the norm, not the exception, especially for students. And it's not just a harmless quirk. Research has linked chronic procrastination to higher stress, worse performance, and even health issues. For real. So it's something worth understanding and addressing.
Right. I know I joke about it, but I know that pulling all-nighters and stressing at 4 a.m. is not great for me, or anybody for that matter. So let's jump in. Why do we procrastinate even in the first place? Are we just lazy, or is there more to it?
That's a great question. Many people assume that procrastination equals laziness or poor time management, but it's really not that simple. In fact, one expert said telling a chronic procrastinators to, quote, just do it, unquote, is like telling a depressed person to cheer up. It just doesn't work that way. Procrastination often has deeper psychological roots. At its core, it's actually considered a self regulation or emotional management problem. Let that sink in. We procrastinate to manage our mood, to avoid negative feelings right now. Let's break down some big reasons researchers have found. Let's talk about immediate gratification. Our brains are wired to prioritize immediate rewards over future benefits. Psychologists call this time inconsistency or temporal discounting. Basically, we know in the long run writing that essay is important for a good grade. That's a future reward. But in the short run, watching Netflix or playing video games feels way more rewarding right now. The present you would rather scroll TikTok, dopamine rush right now, than help out future you who has an exam next week. So we delay the tough task. As one writer explained, the present self loves instant gratification, while the future self values long term payoff. And when it's decision time, present self often wins.
Ooh, guilty as charged. You know, my present self is the jerk who leaves the dirty laundry for my future self. It's just like myself, it's like I'm always assuming, hey, I'll feel more like doing it later. Spoiler alert, I don't feel like it later. Sometimes, in fact, I don't any more like it later than I did before, and it just goes right out of my mind.
Exactly. We tend to think our future self will be more motivated or free or whatever, but often that's just not true. This is partly why students procrastinate on long term assignments. For example, in the early weeks of the semester, the deadline feels far away. Low immediate reward for starting now. And hanging out with friends or watching a movie is immediately satisfying. Only as the deadline gets very close does the task finally feel urgent or rewarding enough to tackle. One classic example describes a student assigned a paper on September 15th that's due December 15th. They intend to start early, but socializing stays more enticing until suddenly the deadline is 2 weeks away and panic mode kicks in. We've all been there. I certainly have. It's human nature to delay unpleasant work when the payoff is distant. Let's talk brain chemistry and dopamine. This relates to the concept of immediate gratification. Our brains have a reward circuit driven by dopamine. Fun or easy activities give a quick dopamine hit, a little rush of pleasure, if you will. In contrast, complex or tedious tasks, such as studying for an exam, usually don't provide immediate pleasure. Their reward, a good grade, pride in accomplishment, comes later. So, what does the brain do? It seeks a quick fix. When faced with an unenjoyable task, your brain starts nudging you to do something else that will feel good now. As one psychologist put it, when a task is hard or boring, the brain looks for an alternative that provides a quicker, immediate dopamine hit.
Curse you, dopamine. I swear I've gotten so productive at unrelated stuff when I'm avoiding an assignment. You know what? My house has never been cleaner than when I had a big project due. I once alphabetized my spice rack instead of writing an essay. My brain was like, oh man, writing that essay is gonna hurt. Let's get a reward by organizing the closet.
Exactly. That's a classic procrastination move. You do, quote, productive procrastination, doing low priority tasks to avoid the high priority ones because those smaller tasks still give you some satisfaction. Your brain releases dopamine to reward you for cleaning, distracting you from the anxiety or boredom of the real task. Let's talk about fear of failure. That's a biggie in this.
Oh yeah.
And it's a huge factor, is emotionally, specifically, fear. Many people procrastinate because of an underlying fear of failure or criticism. If deep down you're worried, what if I do a terrible job? It can feel safer not to start at all. Postponing the task delays the possibility of failure or judgment. For example, a student might delay writing an essay because they're subconsciously afraid it won't turn out good enough. Or a person might put off applying for a job because they fear rejection. This is where procrastination comes in. If you feel you must do something perfectly or not at all, it's tempting not to do it until you absolutely have to. Psychologists call this an irrational fear. You're so scared of not meeting your own high standards that you avoid the task to avoid feeling like a failure. In the short term, this avoidance protects your mood. You don't have to face the fear. But in the long term, it just increases stress and makes things far worse.
This really's hitting home here, Dr. Weaver. I remember thinking, if I start this paper and it sucks, I'll feel awful. But if I do it last minute, eh, I have an excuse if it's not that great. I hate to admit it, but sometimes I'd rather people think I bombed because I procrastinated than to think that I tried my best and then it wasn't all that good.
You're describing what psychologists call self handicapping. And you're right. Chronic procrastinators sometimes prefer others to think they lacked effort rather than ability. It's like an ego defense. Quote, I could have done better if I'd had more time. Right. By intentionally not trying until the last moment, any failure can be attributed to procrastination rather than a potential lack of ability. Of course, that just sabotages yourself, but it can feel safer to our pride. Interestingly, while a fear of failure can cause procrastination, research shows that the relationship isn't as straightforward as people think. Not all perfectionists procrastinate. In fact, on average, perfectionists tend to procrastinate slightly less than other people. Surprising, right? However, it appears there's a subset of people for whom perfectionism does indeed lead to avoidance. The key idea is what you said, Chandler. If someone's perfectionism makes them so fearful of a flawed outcome, they'll delay or avoid starting. The anxiety and self doubt become the drivers of procrastination.
Well, let's think about it like there are two different flavors of procrastination. One is, this task is unpleasant. I'd rather have fun now. The dopamine slash instant gratification. And the other is, well, this task is scary. I'll feel bad if I fail, so I avoid it. The fear slash failure side. And sometimes they team up. Like a scary task is also unpleasant. So you double procrastinate.
Exactly. One research summary described a perfect storm for procrastination as occurring when you have an unpleasant or daunting task and meet a person who is impulsive and anxious. The person might be both easily lured by temptations and burdened by a fear of failure. In that scenario, you bet procrastination will happen. To sum up, most procrastination boils down to a battle between short term mood repair versus long term goals. We often delay action to avoid feeling bad now, whether it's avoiding stress, boredom, or potential embarrassment. Unfortunately, as many of us know, procrastination often creates more negative feelings such as guilt and panic later on.
Oh, tell me about it. I've noticed that when I procrastinate, I'm not even enjoying my free time because there's this guilt that's easing in the back of my head. Like, I'm at a party, but I'm thinking about the assignment that I haven't even started yet. So, therefore, I'm avoiding anxiety initially, but replacing it with a constant low grade dread. Oh, fun, right?
You're right. In fact, studies show exactly that. Procrastinators get an early stress relief, like, I didn't have to do it today, but they end up with higher stress and lower well being later on. One classic study found that at the semester's start, procrastinating students felt far less stressed than others. Yeah, probably because they were off having fun. However, by the end of the term, procrastinators had significantly more stress, more illnesses, and worse grades than non procrastinators. So the short term mood boost flips into a long term penalty. And like you said, even during procrastination, many people feel guilt or shame. One researcher, Dr. Tim Peichel, found that when students put off their work for something more pleasant, they did feel temporary relief, but they also reported high levels of guilt. They knew they were self sabotaging. So there's this constant kind of give and tug internal conflict.
Oh, yes. Procrastination is basically an I'll feel better 100% later if I do it now, but I'll feel better right now if I don't and wait until later. Our brains usually choose the feel good now option and conveniently ignore the feel good terrible later consequence until later becomes right now. It's sort of like a bad gift that you send to your future self.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, to recap why we procrastinate, our brains overvalue immediate comfort or fun and undervalue future rewards. Our dopamine system nudges us towards quick pleasures, and our emotions, like fear, anxiety, or feeling overwhelmed, make us avoid tasks that threaten our sense of competence or peace. It's a complex mix of biology and psychology. It's not really just being lazy or disorganized.
Which oddly makes me feel a bit better about the situation. Like, oh, I procrastinate because my brain is a tricky beast, not just because I'm a failure at adulting, but it also means that I can't just yell at myself to stop procrastinating. I need to outsmart my brain's wiring and address those emotions.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Thank you.
And you're exactly correct. Understanding the why gives us clues as to how to fix it. And we'll get to some strategies. But first, since you mentioned being a student, Chandler, let's talk a bit about how procrastination typically shows up in student life. I'm sure listeners who are students or have been students will relate to this. I'm talking about strategies and tools to overcome procrastination here. So great. But
Absolutely.
the million dollar question, how do I stop procrastinating? The fact that it has psychological causes means we need psychological and practical strategies to counter them. There's no one magic fix, if only there were, but researchers and experts have developed a bunch of tools that help. We'll go through several, but you can mix and match what works for you. And hey, even if you don't eliminate procrastination entirely, and we're all human, so you probably won't, these can reduce and improve your productivity and your peace of mind. All right, the first up, the Pomodoro technique.
The good old Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro. That's Italian for tomato, right? I recall something about a tomato timer.
Yeah, the Pomodoro technique was invented by Francesco Cirillo, who named it after those tomato shaped kitchen timers. It's a simple time management method. Here's how it works. You set a timer, doesn't have to be a tomato. Your phone, your phone or a web app works just fine for like say 25 minutes and focus on one task during that time. No interruptions. When the timer rings, you take a 5-minute break. That cycle is one Pomodoro. After 4 cycles or so, you take a longer break, say 15 to 30 minutes. The idea is that anyone can focus for 25 minutes. It's short enough to seem doable, even for a boring task, and then you get a break as a reward. This helps break the inertia of not starting. Research suggests this technique helps maintain your mental energy and keeps productivity high by preventing burnout. Essentially, you work in short bursts with frequent breaks, which can help reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed.
I really, really like this one because 25 minutes feels way less scary than I'm going to study all afternoon. I can tell myself, it's just 25 minutes. I can survive that. And often once I start, I get on a roll sometimes and even continue past the timer, though they say you should still break to refresh. Plus, knowing a break is coming, that makes it so much easier to start working.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're gamifying your work. And importantly, during those 25 minutes, you remove distractions, put your phone on silent, shut off other tasks, then reward yourself in the 5-minute break. Stretch, grab a coffee, check a couple of messages, set a timer for the break too, so it doesn't accidentally become 50 minutes instead of 15. The Pomodoro technique tackles procrastination by creating structure and a sense of urgency in short spurts. It also combats perfectionism because you're like, I only have to work on this for 25 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just make some progress. Just give it a try. A lot of students will find that this really helps.
Well, I'm definitely trying that this week. Who knows? Maybe I'll even buy a cute little tomato timer. Though, knowing me, I'll procrastinate by researching the best Pomodoro timers for an hour. Okay, next strategy.
Okay. Um, One reason we procrastinate is that tasks feel vague, huge, or intimidating. Write a 20-page paper is a scary, amorphous goal that begs to be put off. So, a key strategy is to reframe and break down big tasks into specific, achievable goals. This makes the task less daunting and gives you a clear starting point. For example, instead of study for biology midterm, which might make you want to curl up and cry, reframe it as a series of smaller tasks. Review chapters 1 through 3 notes. Quiz myself on key terms. Do 10 practice problems from old exams, etc. Each of these is a concrete mini goal that you can tackle step by step. Research on goal setting shows that setting clear, specific goals leads to better performance than vague or do your best goals. And psychologically, each small step you complete gives you a bit of achievement, which can build momentum. As one expert on habits notes, the friction that causes procrastination is often at the start of a task. Once you begin, it's much less painful to keep going. So make it easy to start. You can do that by reducing the size of the first step. Some people use the 2-minute rule. Commit to just 2 minutes on the task. For instance, write one sentence of my essay or do one math problem. It sounds really silly, but it works because the hardest part is beginning. And after those 2 minutes, you often find you're already in the flow, as you mentioned, Chandler. and continues naturally. But even if you, hey, stop. Hey, you did 2 minutes, more than nothing, right?
Oh, yeah. I use a trick for essays. I tell myself, just write a bad first draft of the intro. It can be total garbage if you want it to be. By giving self permission to be imperfect and just start, I overcome that initial block. Usually, I end up writing more than just the intro. It's just like lowering the bar to get myself to jump at all.
Yeah, that's a great example of reframing. You reframed write a perfect paper to write a draft, any draft. Removing the pressure of perfection makes it easier to dive in. So, yeah, reframe goals in a positive, manageable way. Instead of, I must ace this or I'm a failure, think, I want to do X to learn, improve, and I'll just do it step by step. A tip: focus on starting rather than finishing. For instance, say, I'll work on this for 30 minutes rather than I must complete it now. Often, the magic is once you start, you naturally go further. Also, try to connect tasks to something personally meaningful or rewarding. I think this one is really important. If you can find an aspect you enjoy or a bigger why, it reduces aversiveness. Like, I hate writing this history report, but I do find World War II interesting. So maybe I can focus on the spy stories part that I like. Enjoyment reduces procrastination. One study found students procrastinated less when they could make the task more enjoyable or interesting. So sometimes reframing is about changing your perspective. Instead of, I have to do this, think, I'm choosing to do this because it will help me reach my goal, get my degree, learn something cool. It sounds cheesy, but mindset matters a lot.
That makes sense. I remember dreading a research project until I reframed it and from required class torture from, hey, maybe I can make this about a topic that I'm curious about. It didn't make it fun per se, but it was less awful and I started it a lot sooner.
Yeah, okay, next up is a biggie in psychology: implementation intentions. That's kind of a mouthful. What the term means is that basically that making a specific if X then Y plan in advance. It's a way to pre-wire your brain in a sense to act in a certain moment. For example, if it's 7 p.m., then I will sit down at my desk and start my English homework. That's an implementation intention. You've decided when and where you'll do the task. It might sound trivial, but research has shown that these specific plans dramatically increase follow through on goals. It's like you're programming your future self with a cue. When 7 p.m., or whatever cue you set, comes, you're more likely to actually do the behavior because you've already made the decision earlier when you weren't under the gun.
So, kind of like making an appointment with myself to work instead of a vague, eh, I'll study sometime tomorrow. I'll say tomorrow after lunch at 1 p.m. I'm going to go to the library and review chapter 4. That way, when 1 p.m. rolls around, I'm not debating whether to study. The plan is already there waiting for me, set in stone.
You know exactly. It reduces the mental negotiation and excuses. You can make if then plans not just for time, but for situations. For example, if I get home from class, then I will immediately read one journal article before doing anything else. Or if it's Sunday night, Then I plan my week's tasks. The key is specifically when, where, and what you will do. Another example, uh, to fight a known distraction. If I sit down to write, then I will put my phone on airplane mode. You pre-decide the response to a trigger. Studies have shown that implementation intentions help, especially with tasks you tend to procrastinate doing. One study even found that 100% of participants who used implementation intentions completed a task like mailing back a health checklist versus only 53% who didn't plan that way. That's huge. The act of writing down or verbalizing your plan, if X, then Y, makes you far more likely to execute it.
That is awesome. You know, I'm going to try literally writing an if-then statement in my planner. It might make me feel like a self-programmed robot, but apparently that's what I need.
Think of it as being the CEO of future you. You're giving future you clear instructions so they don't drift. And another pro tip, combine this with setting reminders. If your plan is, if it's 7 p.m., then start homework, set an alarm at 7 that labels homework time so it triggers you. Over time, it can kind of become a habit. We've touched on this, but it's worth its own strategy. Make it easier to do the right thing and harder to do the tempting thing. This is sometimes called reducing friction. Now, friction in this context means anything that makes starting or focusing on your task harder. For example, your phone buzzing with notifications is friction in the way of a deep study session. A messy, noisy study environment is friction. Not having the materials you need ready is friction. We want to remove or reduce these obstacles ahead of time. Some very practical tips. Minimize digital distractions. That's a biggie these days. Install website blockers or turn off notifications during work time. There are apps that, for example, blocks social media for a set period. Or do the old-fashioned thing and put your phone in another room for that 25-minute Pomodoro. If the temptation isn't right at your fingertips, you're less likely to derail. As one expert suggests, you can even use commitment devices like deleting games or social apps from your phone or using extensions to block sites to prevent mindless procrastination scrolling. Creating a bit of effort to access distractions, like you have to go fetch your phone, can be enough to keep you on track. Another thing, optimize your space. If you find you procrastinate because your desk is cluttered or you get up to look for stuff, take a few minutes to set up a clean, inviting workspace with all your materials. That way, when it's time to work, you're not slowed down by, oh, where's my textbook? Maybe I'll just watch TV instead. Prepare your environment for focus. Some people even lay out what they need the night before, such as setting out your work clothes as a cue to exercise. For studying, maybe have your books, water, and snacks ready and clear away unrelated distractions. As we talked about a little bit, use accountability to raise the stakes. For some, a little bit of external pressure helps. For instance, study groups or co-working with a friend can keep you accountable. You've scheduled a time to meet and you work together, so you're less likely to bail. Or you can publicly announce your goal. I'll draft my resume by Friday and send it to you to proofread. Then there's a social expectation that nudges you to actually do it. There are even websites where you stake money on your goal to add a consequence if you procrastinate. Exemplio gratia. Your money goes to charity if you don't meet the goal. And that's a hardcore approach, but it works for some people. The idea is to make procrastination less attractive or more painful and make action easier.
I did something like this when I was in college. My friend and I would always go to the library together every Friday afternoon. We jokingly called it procrastination jail. We would sit at the quiet section, so we felt guilted into working, and we would not leave until we each finished a certain amount. Sure, it sucked at first, but we always felt proud coming out at dinner with work done. If I'd stayed at home, I guarantee you I would have had naps instead. Wow, the buddy system really helped me.
Yeah, that's perfect. In fact, research supports that social support and accountability can significantly reduce procrastination in academic settings. Just having someone keep you on task or share the struggle can push you to start and keep going. So, whether it's a friend, a tutor, a study group, or even a parent checking in, don't be afraid to enlist others in your anti procrastination plan. And the flip side, make those distractions less accessible. I know someone who literally gives their phone to their roommate or spouse for a couple of hours when they need to grind on work. Extreme, but effective. If Netflix is a temptation, maybe log out and give a friend the password to change for a while, or work somewhere without TV. It comes down to self understanding. Know your biggest procrastination triggers and put some speed bumps in the road.
Ooh, I really like that concept. Put speed bumps on the road to Procrastinationville and pave the road to Productivityville. For me, I'll just try leaving my phone in the kitchen when I study in my bedroom and maybe use a website blocker so that I don't accidentally end up on Reddit. Ooh, this sounds kind of touchy-feely. How does self-compassion help me stop procrastinating? Well, I usually motivate myself by, you know, internally screaming, Chandler, you lazy potato, just do the thing.
Many of us do use the inner drill sergeant approach. This one kind of hits close to home because I tend to be very harsh and demanding of myself. Research shows that self compassion is actually far more effective. It sounds counterintuitive. Being kind to yourself about procrastinating, won't that make you slack off more? But here's what studies find: people who forgive themselves for procrastinating and practice self compassion tend to procrastinate less going forward. For example, one study of students found that those who forgave themselves for procrastinating before the first exam were less likely to procrastinate studying for the next exam. The idea is that beating yourself up with guilt and harsh criticism just makes you feel worse, which can lead to more avoidance as a way to cope with those negative feelings. It's a vicious cycle. You procrastinate, then call yourself a failure, which makes doing the task even more painful because now it's tied to your self worth. So you procrastinate more. Self compassion breaks that cycle. It means treating yourself with understanding and kindness in the face of mistakes or lapses. Instead of, I'm so stupid, I screwed up, you say something like, okay, I procrastinated. I'm not proud of it, but I'm human, and a lot of people struggle with this. I can still try to make it better without hating myself. It's like how you'd confront a friend. You'd say, it's all right. You got this next time. Not, you're hopeless. Being supportive to yourself doesn't remove responsibility. You still acknowledge the problem, but it removes the toxic shame, and that actually boosts your motivation to do better.
You know, I think I get it. When I procrastinate and then call myself lazy or worthless, I just feel deflated and hopeless, which weirdly just makes me want to escape the task more because it's now tied to those bad feelings. But if I say, okay, I slipped up, but I can learn and try again, then I probably feel more optimistic about continuing.
One researcher has 20 plus years of experience studying procrastination and emphasizes that self criticism backfires. If you respond to procrastinating with harsh self judgment, you increase stress and demotivate yourself. On the other hand, self forgiveness and compassion can increase your resilience and willingness to re engage with the task. In a way, you're removing the extra emotional burden, guilt, and shame, so you can focus on the task itself. So, practically, how do you do this? Well, next time you catch yourself procrastinating, or you realize you've been procrastinating, take a deep breath. Instead of spiraling into, I always do this, I'm the worst, talk to yourself like a friend. Acknowledge the procrastination without judgment. I put off writing that paper and now I'm stressed. It happens. I'm not the only one who struggles with this. What can I do now to move forward? Give yourself a bit of empathy. I was overwhelmed, and that's why I avoided it. It's understandable, but I still have time to make it better. This mindset doesn't let you off the hook, and it does keep you accountable without the added weight of self hate.
I'm going to be honest here. This one's hard for me, but I'm used to being my own worst critic. But I have noticed that when I sometimes say, okay, you messed up today, but tomorrow is a new day, I end up actually doing a lot better the next day versus when I spend the evening feeling like garbage about it.
That's the idea. Self compassion helps you bounce back rather than get stuck. It also reminds you that you're not alone. Procrastination is common. You're not uniquely flawed. Feeling connected in our flaws actually helps us overcome them sometimes. So, those are a few major strategies: Pomodoro, reframing, breaking tasks into smaller bits, if then planning, reducing friction, and self compassion. There are others too, like mindfulness meditation has been shown to help some by improving focus and reducing stress, or developing a growth mindset, believing you can improve with effort, which reduces fear or failure. I'd say the ones we've discussed cover a lot, and it's a great toolkit to start with.
That is an awesome toolkit, I have to say. I feel empowered already, or at least I feel like I have a battle plan against my procrastination. The enemy is no longer abstract. I see its weaknesses now.
The dragon of procrastination can be slain, or at least tamed, with these noble tools. And remember, it's a process.
So, what are our key takeaways here? If I had procrastinated listening and only tuned in for the last 2 minutes, shame on me. But what would I absolutely need to know?
Well, procrastination is not just laziness. It's a complex behavior rooted in our brain's desire for immediate comfort and for emotional responses like fear and anxiety. We procrastinate because immediate reward and relief from negative feelings win out over distant goals. And sometimes because we're secretly afraid of failing or not being perfect. It's extremely common, especially among students, but it's also harmful. It leads to more stress and worse performance in the long run, even if it feels better or good in the moment. The good news, there are practical strategies to fight back. Some of those you can use the Pomodoro technique to work in focused bursts with breaks, making tasks feel more manageable. You can break big tasks into smaller goals and just get started for a short time to overcome the initial resistance. Creating if then plans and implementation intentions helps ensure you start tasks when you plan. You should also minimize distractions and make it easier to focus. Put up roadblocks to your common procrastination pitfalls. Hide that phone and maybe get an accountability buddy. And importantly, be kind to yourself. If you slip, don't waste energy on self loathing. Forgive yourself and move forward. Self compassion isn't permission to procrastinate, it's a strategy to help stop procrastination by not drowning in negative emotions.
I love that. It's like use some hacks on your environment and schedule, and also hack your internal monologue from drill sergeant to encouraging coach.
Well put. We often need to coach ourselves with understanding rather than beat ourselves up. And let me emphasize, overcoming procrastination is a gradual process. You might try these tips and still find yourself procrastinating sometimes. That's normal. The goal isn't to become a flawless productivity robot, it's to procrastinate less and recover faster. Celebrate the small wins. Hey, I started that project a week early. Or I only lost 10 minutes to YouTube instead of 2 hours. Progress. Each small improvement shows you can change these habits.
And if you slip up tomorrow and procrastinate for half the day, then hey, practice that self-compassion and then try again the next day with maybe a new tactic from the toolkit. Eventually, it gets better.
Exactly. I often tell students every minute you shave off your procrastination is a minute gained for sanity. Even if you still procrastinate a bit, getting control, even part of the time, will help you feel better and do better. And remember, you're far from alone in this struggle. And it doesn't mean you're lazy or incapable. It means you're human with a human brain.
I feel like that we should end with a motivational slogan. Something like, don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today, or maybe more realistically, do a small piece of it today so that tomorrow will say thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Future you will definitely thank present you for any effort you put in now. Think of it as a gift to your future self. All right, I think that's a great note to wrap up on. We hope these insights and tips help you understand your own procrastination and give you some ideas to experiment with.
Well, I know that I'm feeling motivated to try Pomodoros and maybe even schedule my tasks in a more concrete way. And yes, yes, I promise not to beat myself up if I slip up. Gentle encouragement only, folks.
That's a spirit. You got this. To our listeners, thanks for hanging out with us. We assume you aren't procrastinating something else by listening, but if you are, finish that thing next. We believe in you. You can break the cycle.
Absolutely. Now go forth and tackle that to-do list one step at a time. And remember, we're all works in progress, friends. Thanks for listening to Things You Don't Know, and we will catch you in the next episode.
Yep, take care and happy productivitying. And if you're listening instead of writing their paper, maybe start the paper now. No pressure.
Come on back and don't put it off.